Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We should be recording now.
All right. So, what was the first thing I was going to start with?
Well, really whatever you want.
Okay.
But I gave you a general list of what our speakers do, but
Yeah.
I'd like to hear all about your time in law school, all about what you do now, what the various different areas of law that you've worked, how you found it, just whatever you can tell about your journey into law school.
Okay. Well, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since I was like 12, and I started watching Law and Order. So then early on, I was like, I know I want to be a lawyer. I know I want to help people. So it's kind of just developed from there. In undergrad, I studied political science and Latin American politics. So I knew that I wanted to do immigration law or something, some sort of like legal service. Sorry, I'm still like catching my breath from rushing.
You're good, no worries.
A lot of switching my route on Google Maps, trying to get the fastest route. Yeah, so early on, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I grew up in an immigrant neighborhood, so I knew that that was a community that needs a lot of legal help, that doesn't get a lot of legal help. So I knew that I wanted to serve my neighbors and people who helped raise me. I grew up in Tucson, and then I came up here to go to ASU. And in college, I was like really burnt out. And by the time I finished college, I like couldn't do another day of school. I was absolutely done with school. So for a while, I was kind of like, I guess I don't want to be a lawyer. Like if I wanted to be a lawyer, I would have gone right through. So I went into sales for about 5 years. I loved it. Gosh, so like, yeah. So I went into sales. I loved it. And there were even a lot of moments where I was like, yeah, I don't really want to be a lawyer. Like I like kind of the strategy of sales. I like having a product and figuring out how to sell it to people. And then I had a really bad quarter and I was like, I think I'm gonna get fired. And I was like, what would I do if I got fired? And I was like, I'd be a lawyer. So that's when I decided to shift and start the process to go to law school. Then I took the LSAT, which was miserable. I hated every second of it. So if you guys are studying for the LSAT and you hate it, I did too. And like I still got there, so it's okay. I took it once and I was like, I'm gonna just take whatever score I get and move forward. Then I went to ASU, and at ASU, after my first year, I got a really good internship, and then they ended up keeping me on through the last 2 years. So I worked and went to law school, and now I work in legal aid. So I ended up exactly where I wanted to be. Yes.
How did you find the organization always, or did they find you?
Kind of a little bit of both. So when I was in law school, I wanted to do public defense. Those are lawyers retained by the government to represent people who can't afford lawyers in criminal matters. And I was doing interviews, and I saw they were a legal aid organization, interviewed with them right before the pandemic, and then they weren't hiring anymore. That was last year. And then I was working on a campaign, and then after the campaign, they emailed me and they're like, we got some more funding, like, can we bring you on? And that's how I ended up at Always.
Okay, well, can you tell us a little bit about how you chose where to go to law school, what the application process was like? Did you always want to go to ASU or?
Yeah, ASU was definitely my first choice. It's a top 25 law school with in-state tuition, so that was easy. I didn't get any scholarships anywhere, so it really ended up being what was the most affordable for me. Yeah.
So I just actually added, since you mentioned you did do sales for a little while, I actually did add a professional sales certificate to my degree the other day. So I was wondering, how do you think that background in sales kind of helped you now that you're working in the legal field? How did those two things come together for you?
Well, one that I didn't realize would be so important is talking about money. So a lot of people are really uncomfortable talking about money. I'll talk about money all day long. Like if people ask me for a service, I'm like, this is what it costs. And I think that's something that I got from sales, just like, I'm not shopping with someone else's money. This is what my service costs. And like with legal aid, working with funding and stuff helps a lot. Also in legal writing, it helps a lot because in sales, it's kind of like, I want to go from hello to credit card as soon as possible. Like I'm cutting out every single word that doesn't have to be there, every single question that doesn't have to be there. So it makes your writing a lot more efficient.
So I'm wondering what everyday life is like at work and if you're doing a lot of sitting, standing, talking to others and how that's also working with COVID right now.
So every day is different. As I'm sure you know, that's like one of the best parts about being a lawyer. I can tell you what I did today. So today I live in Tucson and I come up here once a week so we can staff cases. And staffing cases is when everybody gets together, we figure out who's working on cases. If we have any new cases, we assign them, kind of like figure out what everybody's doing. So today we had case staffing. So one of our attorneys, she left a couple months ago. So we were like kind of tying up all the pieces, divvying out her cases, getting all those cases, reviewing them, deciding next steps, reaching out to clients. Our scanner broke today, so it was a lot of like taking pictures with my iPad kind of thing. Working at a small nonprofit, I love it, but it is kind of like I'm IT, I'm my own legal secretary, I'm an attorney. So it's kind of like solving a lot of those small problems. And then I took a break because the files were overwhelming. And then I went back to files and looking and figuring out, calling clients, letting them know I'm their new attorney and stuff like that. Yesterday I did a lot of, what did I do yesterday? Oh, yesterday. So I have a client, we're working on a T visa, and that's a visa for survivors of human trafficking. So I need a police report from the Houston Police Department. So I was kind of running around their bureaucracy yesterday and hopefully we'll have it soon.
So can you tell us a bit more about what kind of cases you do work on usually? Like what's the most common? What are some of the more interesting ones you worked on?
Well, right now we're doing a lot of immigration. I have some trafficking cases. We have a lot of cases of kids who are in foster care. So we're doing visas for them so we can get them adopted. A lot of them are like unaccompanied minors that we get visas for. What else are we doing? We do criminal repair. So a lot of survivors of human trafficking, they have shoplifting and prostitution charges. So we work with prosecutors to get those charges removed.
What skills did you learn in law school that transferred really well to your career? And were there any that you had to learn in the field?
I guess what I learned in law school is really like how to read like a lawyer. There are words that are like very specific in the law. And I know what those words mean. So knowing how like kind of the whole system works together is really important. People that I met in law school, I'll reach out to them. Like I had a tax case a couple of weeks ago. And I reached out to one of my friends who's a tax attorney. I mean, I had to learn a lot of immigration coming out of this job. And being a lawyer, you kind of sign up for a career of learning. So if you like learning, be an attorney. If you don't like learning, find something else. This isn't gonna be the right career for you. Yeah.
So you said that you had to like reach out to one of your friends that was like a tax attorney. So do you think like networking is an important part of like what you do? And like, if so, what do you think the best ways to network are?
I mean, don't be weird about it. Like, don't be like one of those people who just like walks around trying to like collect business cards. Like, make friends. People are cool. Like, learn what people want to do. And then like people call me, I call my friends. So just don't be weird about it. Like, get to know people because like people are fun to know. Yeah. But then there are all these people are like, oh, hello, like, can I have your business card? Like, don't be weird about it, but make friends. Yeah.
Do we have a question in the back there? Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
What are all the cases that you've done that are most impactful?
Probably a lot of our, like, we do a lot of like little cases, you know, like we're not in the court, or we're not in the courtroom. But I have a client and we got a prostitution and a shoplifting charge taken off of her record. So she was able to get a fingerprint card and now she's a caretaker. So she's able to make more money for her family because she was able to get her fingerprint card. So we do a lot of those, like you don't really think about how impactful it is until somebody's like, wow, like I can get my own apartment. I don't have to do Section 8 anymore. So those kinds of cases are the ones I like the most.
If you could go back, what's one thing you would change about your law school experience?
I think I was thinking about this earlier today. I would not be sad about losing friends year to year. Like kind of your classes change. So people that like I was friends with my first year when we weren't friends anymore. My second year, I was really upset about it. And it's just kind of like I met more people. And so I would just enjoy moving forward in my career instead of being sad about not being around the same people all the time.
So when you became interested in law, did you ever have like a mentor or like a family member that was like a lawyer or in law, or was it you just go blind?
I was totally blind. I was 12 and there was like this website that was like the Constitution for Kids or something. And I used to go on that all the time and I loved like how all the amendments related to each other and stuff. Yeah, and then like when I got to college, like a lot of my friends, they wanted to be lawyers too. So we were like kind of the blind leading the blind. So yeah, it wasn't really until I like got into law school that I really started to meet lawyers.
How often do you end up bringing work home with you? Whether it's like emotionally, like just like baggage or like physical work?
I refuse. I will not take work home with me. And I like told my boyfriend, like, if you ever feel like you're not getting as much of me as my clients, let me know. Because like he's the most important person to me. Like if I had to choose my boyfriend or my clients, I'd choose my boyfriend every time. So I refuse. Like, and if there is a case that's like feeling heavy, I like give myself a break from it. Like I want to do this work for my whole life, and I'm not gonna be able to if I take work home. So that's a hard line. I mean, I work from home, so like I guess it's there, but like, yeah, I've gotten good at drawing boundaries and not taking work home.
What do you think is like one of the easiest ways to set those boundaries? Because like when I eventually become a lawyer, I feel like that's gonna be one of the things that's gonna be really hard for me. So like, where did you start in terms of doing that?
I just tell people, like, I have clients who will text me and I don't respond until the next morning. So I'm like, you can text me, you can email me whenever you want, but you're not getting anything from me until it's work time. And I mean, my organization's really supportive of it. I mean, I have like an auto reply on my email. It's like, I reply to emails in the morning. So I make it very clear that you're not getting anything from me outside of work time.
Did you like pick this up with your history of burning out in college, or have you always been like kind of a good person with boundaries when it came to keeping things separate?
Well, I did a lot of therapy. So that's where I learned a lot, that I had boundary issues. And then it's just like, I know that this is important to me. And I guess like, yeah, part of it was burning out in college and like I know I want to do this long term. And then also like being realistic with myself. Like if I do get burnt out on like legal aid work, I can do contract law like in 5 years. Like you can always step back. If you have a JD and you're like a licensed lawyer, there's always going to be something to do. So if I need a break from legal aid, like I can go into contract law. So yeah, just being realistic with myself and honest with myself.
Going into law school, like you can have an idea like what you want to do, and that can change with like the first class. Can you like, is it easier to change a different path of law when you're there, or are you kind of just stuck?
I mean, it might be hard like right out of law school. Like if you really like narrowed yourself into something, it might be hard right out of law school. But once you get experience, like you can switch all the time. Do you have, okay. Yeah. So I mean, there's always something to switch to. Like it right out of law school might be a little hard if you've really focused on something, but you can definitely switch.
How is it like adjusting to like policy changes in like the world of immigration? Like, I don't know how long you've been doing it. You might have said that, but I might have spaced it. But like over administrations, things change. It's very malleable. Is that like difficult?
I mean, like immigration law is kind of a bummer. Like,
yeah,
just kind of always like, it just always feels like we're losing. So like with administration changes, it's like, oh, how are we gonna lose this time? Like now, how are we losing? Like, so, I mean, when we do get a win, it's exciting, but like kind of, it's a career of learning. So like things are always gonna be changing. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's like, especially in immigration law, you would deal with a lot of like difficult people that may be against you. How do you like thrive from that, or like use that, or deal with difficult people?
So, I mean, okay, I don't know if this is answering your question, but this is top of my mind. I had a very difficult client a couple weeks ago, to the point that I was like, chill out, like, I'm not your enemy, like, you know, and it's moments like that that I have to take a step back and remind myself that like, I'm not the queen of legal service. Like, I'm not the one who gets to decide who's worthy of it. And people don't have to be nice to me, and people don't have to worship the floor that I walk on to get legal service. Like, I'm somebody here who's like a halfway decent person, I think, like trying to do nice things for people. So like, when stuff like that happens, that I do feel frustrated with clients, like I remind myself, like, it's wrong that anybody's in this situation. Like, it's okay that people are mad at me. Like, I'm human, we're all humans, like, that's okay. Just kind of gotta roll with it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, on the client side, I guess it's more of like the add-on to the question is
Yeah.
like, it's like, there's always like higher officials, like,
Yeah.
especially with immigration law, that's like always going against you. Like, is there a way you deal with that mentally, or is it just like, you just keep pushing?
I mean, just keep pushing, being honest with clients a lot of times is like, I have no control over this. Like, we're gonna go see this immigration judge, and it's all his decision. Like, we have no power in this. Like, I hope it goes well, but it's not my decision, it's not our decision. So like, laying that out with clients is really important.
When you're like going through something like that like you mentioned can be a little bit discouraging at times, like how do you think like the most, or not how do you think, but like, what do you think is the best way to like stay positive? How is like that incorporated into that? Because that just seems like so draining, you know, sometimes.
I mean, I think boundaries are really important. Like, filling up my cup is really important. Like, maybe I'll talk to a client who's like more fun to talk to, or like, I'll take a break or something. But I mean, like, honestly, like what really like keeps me going is like, this whole thing is wrong. Like, it's wrong that my clients are here. It's wrong that this is happening. And like, I want to be here to help people with it. Like, I want to be here to give that service. So like, if I wasn't there, like, they may not have anybody to do it. So forgiving myself when things don't go the way that I want it to, or just like being realistic that like, I have no power over this. Like, we just have to keep going. It doesn't sound like it does, but it does. It does keep me going.
When you're talking about like getting rid of charges for certain clients, do they usually pick up those charges like in the States when they're going through immigration, or is that like prior to when they like kind of emigrate here?
So that's separate from immigration. Sometimes like our immigration clients do have those kinds of charges, but it's like a different system. So it's like more on the criminal side. So we'll just like call the prosecutor and explain what happened. And
Oh, I see.
a lot of times they do drop them.
Oh, so it's like pretty easy working with prosecutors then when it's like women and children. Oh, it depends.
I mean, I'm not a fan of prosecutors in general, so like, sorry if anybody wants to be a prosecutor, but like sometimes they're like, I'm like, this person is a trafficking survivor, and other times they're like, you have to submit this evidence, this evidence, this evidence. I'm like, all right, I'll do what you want. Yeah, so it just depends.
Yeah. And then so when it comes to, like you said, you worked with the police in Houston, right?
Yeah.
Texas. So are you always having to like learn how like the laws work in Texas then before you can communicate with them?
So I need to know like how like the Houston Police Department functions, because it's like, I'm asking for their report. So knowing how to navigate the system over there. Yeah, I don't really need to know Houston or Texas laws.
Maybe he answered that, I don't know, but it's like, I mean, I'm from Houston and.
Sorry.
No, trust me,
It's
it's
been
so
very
bad.
frustrating.
No, it's very bad, it's very bad.
Do you want to call Cassandra for me?
It's like, I would guess it's like you have connections from different states from like, especially like along the border and stuff, but like, did you just make those connections through like the law school with their experience or like?
Which connections?
Like from people, like different like attorneys or like stuff, like just different people, I guess, that helps you throughout your career from different states.
Yeah, like people kind of, they go to law school and they like disperse, but like sometimes I'll know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That helps. Yeah.
How often do you have to work with like officials from other states?
Not often. Yeah, it's mostly just Arizona. I have a client right now and she escaped a trafficking situation in Minnesota. So we're trying to figure out whether we should hire an attorney in Minnesota or handle it in Arizona, but not really. Yeah. Or like the Houston, but like. Okay. Yes.
What do you think is the hardest part of your job?
Telling clients bad news. Like when DACA was declared illegal, like it was really hard going through and making those calls. And like the hardest part was the people who were like, okay, like, all right. Okay. So it was like, be mad with me, you know, like be mad at me if you have to. Like that was the hardest part, was like telling people like this program that you're depending on isn't here anymore. So we're hopeful it's coming back. We have all of our DACA cases in a folder and we're hoping to open them back up again. But so far that's been the hardest part.
Does your legal aid ever like cross into Native American law or work with, sorry, I'm blanking on like what those like areas are particularly called?
Like tribal law?
Yeah,
We haven't. If we did, we would probably like send a client to like a tribal lawyer. But like tribal law is really fascinating. Like if you can get into it, like it's like if you're like a law nerd, do tribal law, 'cause it's like law plus layers of like history and stuff. So I encourage, like once you all get to law school, like take Indian law because it's fascinating.
What was your favorite law school class?
I think it might have been criminal procedure. It's all Fourth and Fifth Amendment. So just like these teeny tiny situations, like were you on this side of the road or this side of the road? Or like, were you on your like front porch or were you on the sidewalk? That kind of stuff. That was fun. Then we listened to 99 Problems. So that was fun.
Was there a class or anything in your undergrad that really benefited your success in law school or where you are now?
I mean, I had it, so I worked really closely with a professor. So she like helped me a lot. Like, do any of you guys have Dr. Hinojosa? Or have you had Dr. Hinojosa? Okay, I love her. She's like an angel woman, but she really helped me a lot and supported me in my academic career and like made me excited about school. So that's probably the most impactful part of undergrad.
I was gonna say, we have a question on the Zoom. So this person asks, if you could do it again, would you still go to law school and still go into the same kind of law?
I would. Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna add to that a little bit. When you were in law school, did you ever consider doing something else while you were there? Or was it always, this is what I want to do and I'm pretty get that on?
The first year is really hard. If you can get through the first year of law school, you really want to be an attorney because it's really hard. I would still do it all the same. I'd still go into the same kind of law. Like I can change my mind down the road, but like, honestly, like law school doesn't really matter. Like you just have to get through it. Like nobody cares about law school. Nobody cares how you did or what classes you took. Like just get through it, whatever you have to do to get through law school. Obviously I love law school, but like, it's fine. If you struggle in law school, so did I, and I'm where I wanted to be, so.
In what ways was your first year of law school hard?
What was that?
In what ways was it hard?
So it's training your brain to think in a totally different way. And like, it's thinking about situations in a way that you've never thought about, thinking about things in a way you've never thought about, like constantly pushing yourself to think in a higher level, or like not even higher level, just in a different way. That was really hard. And they really like pile the work on. So it's like training your brain to think differently. Plus you have 200 pages of reading tomorrow. Is that answer? Okay.
Was there like a really good LSAT study source that you liked more than another, or one that helped you a lot before you took it?
I used PowerScore. It was the cheapest. So.
Is there anything in like, I know you took a gap between undergrad and law school, but it's like, is there anything you would give tips on for just going through undergrad, preparing for law school?
Really, I couldn't. That was not the path for me. Like I would have failed out of law school if I went through. So that was just not the path for me.
do you have to do like continuing like legal training? Like, some of my family's a defense attorney, and so they have to do like, I don't know what they're called, but is that something you would have to do?
Yeah, and I got an email today that like I have to register for it, so thanks for reminding me.
What does that look like for you? Is it immigration stuff? Because I feel like you cover a lot of different types of topics.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of like whatever you want. Like you have to do a certain amount of ethics and then like a certain amount of like whatever else you want. So you can like pick your field, or if you're thinking about changing fields, like try something else. So yeah. I have to do my ethics one, so.
So if I might ask, what was it like studying for and taking the bar exam?
It was my job, like it was my full-time job. I like had, it was kind of similar to studying for the LSAT kind of, but like the LSAT, I was just talking to my director about this, like the LSAT is like, it's not testing real stuff. That's like the hardest part of the LSAT is like, none of this is real. So it's different studying for the bar because it is real. Like you can study for the bar. You can't really like study for the LSAT. So just like every day for like 7 or 8 hours, like sitting down and doing practice questions or doing lectures. Yeah.
Nice.
Just getting through the modules.
Also a bit curious, what's it like working at a smaller like nonprofit law firm as opposed to like people who go into like the big law stuff? Our last speaker worked at like Tiffany and Bosco, so a very big corporate law firm.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you have any friends that worked in like higher end stuff like that, what's the difference between, you know, the kind of work that you do, how it impacts your general life, and what are the differences?
I mean, I think the biggest difference is they make a lot of money. Like, the thing is like, the reason that's not right for me is because they own you. Like, when you work for those big law firms, like you have to bill 2,500 hours, and like, I'm like, I need to go home. Like, I can't do that. So, people who want to get like a lot of exposure really quickly, they like, I mean, another good thing about working at like a big law firm is like, there's always lawyers around. So like, you can get like an expert in another field, or you can get mentored by somebody. So it's kind of like very high paced. And like, you learn a lot. That's just not right for me. Like, I like the slower nonprofit side. Yeah.
How many lawyers are there at your current place? Like about
4. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on like what you mean that the LSAT is like not real and the bar is like real?
So the LSAT, it's like Kenny, Sarah, Jason, and Andy walk into a room. Like Kenny and Sarah have green shoes. Like Emily has blue shoes. Why did Sam leave early? You know, like I can't figure that stuff out. You know, like it's like just a lot of like puzzle things. Like if you're good at puzzles, you'll probably do well on it. Or like if like, but that kind of stuff really like I would read them and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like I really could only do it once. And then the bar, it's like you learn what's on the bar in law school. You have to review it by the time the bar comes, but like I've learned it already. Yeah.
Speaking of that, our next meeting will be going over some logic games and whatnot. So for anyone who's like really not sure what's on the LSAT, we will go over that in this club. Don't worry, we'll get you ready for that.
I will not be here. I'm definitely looking at one. Did you have that?
Yeah, so I'm kind of interested in a similar type of law as you. I want to do like nonprofit work with like victims of sexual assault. So I guess my question to you would be like, if there's anything that you recommend that I do now to prepare for that. And also I'm kind of worried about working at like nonprofit firms because I know that you make less money, and I'm nervous about like loans at law school, but I want to do something that matters to me.
Yeah.
So I guess I was really excited for you to come because I feel like you're like kind of in the same vein as what I'm looking for. So I guess all of that kind of.
Well, I mean, like, I'm not a financial person. And I think it's wrong that school costs money.
Yeah.
So I took out the loans and I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not paying them right now because there's nothing due. So like, they're there when they want them, you know, like, I'm not worrying about the money side. Like, that's not important to me. I'll pay them, don't worry about like, that's not, I refuse to lose sleep over money. So I mean, like if you're the kind of person who loses sleep over money, maybe like that's not the right path for you, but like, I don't care making less money, like, this is the kind of stuff that makes me feel alive, so. I mean, I'd say like to prepare, like, maybe like volunteer or like something, like I can give you my card and like, we're gonna have some volunteer stuff coming up. So,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I was gonna ask you about that too, because we're trying to do some volunteer stuff for the club. So if you can give me that information later, I can share it with people.
totally, yeah.
Oh, I heard for the bar exam that you have to like go into this fake court case or court trial.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was, so when I was preparing, that was the hardest section for me. And then when I did it on the bar exam, it was really easy. And I thought they tricked me. And I was like, they tricked me, like, they got this one out of me, like, I picked up on the wrong thing or something. So in practice, it was really hard, but in the actual exam, it was like kind of fun. Like, you're reading like this obscure law from like this made up land and writing a paper about it. It was like, oh, okay, I know how to do that. Like, what? So I passed and they did trick me, but like, there was a moment I was like, I've been had. Bar exam got me.
I know that like the LSAT score like matters for getting into like law school. As like, does the bar like score like matter as much?
No.
This past.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. Just get a 273, you're good. Yeah. The passing score is 273 and I got 277. Like,
How many people do you know from Canada O'Connor went out of state?
maybe like 3 or 4.
Let's say state.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like, you'll always be able to get a job where you went to law school because you have the connections there. So a lot of people, like, if they do want to move, they might stay for a year just to like get something on their resume.
This is kind of going off of what you just said, but would you recommend finding the firms that you want to work for while you're in your bachelor's to figure out where you want to go to law school? Because I've been told it's a lot easier to get jobs like what you said, where you are going to law school because you have all of those connections already.
If maybe not firms, because like by the time you get there, they might have like different hiring practices or something. But if there's like a place you want to live, like go to law school there. So you can stay there for after law school. But it's always gonna end up okay. Like, don't like, you're gonna be fine. Like, lawyers are gonna be fine. We're always gonna need lawyers, like, everything's gonna be fine. Whatever happens, it's all gonna be okay, I guess I meant that to be comforting, and I guess it was.
How did you figure out that this area of law was like for you?
I just knew, like, it felt right. Like, I never had any interest in like doing corporate law. Like, that was never, like, Boston legal was never like for me. But like Law and Order, even though I don't like prosecutors anymore, like, that was the side that I wanted to do. So I just knew and it felt right.
What was your first exposure to this area of law that you now practice?
Well, I grew up in Tucson and I grew up on the west side of Tucson. So like a lot of kids that I went to school with, they would have public defenders or legal aid. And it was like the way the people in my community got legal assistance was through public defenders and legal aid. And I knew I wanted to be on that side of it.
So I interned over the summer at an immigration law firm, so did Michael, he was there with me. But I never really got to meet with the clients, partially because I don't speak Spanish. But like, what's that like, meeting with someone who like, a large part of their life is in your hands right then?
Yeah.
Of course, they're all stressed and they're worried about how this can turn out. And you're the person they're looking to for not only reassurance, but for helping them get through that. What's that actually like, meeting with them face to face?
I mean, at first it was really scary. And then it's hard at first, but like, eventually it's kind of like, I'm the one who has the information that they need. So it was kind of like, well, got to do it, like, got to get out there. And it's kind of like a little bit of exposure therapy, like, just put yourself out there. I mean, it really sucks to give people bad news and it's like really not fun. It's like, kind of like with the money thing, like asking people about money, like it's having that exposure to having like uncomfortable conversations with people, like makes it easier to like ask people hard questions. So it's just like one of those things that I'm like, I want the glory, like I want people to be like, oh, wow, Twyla's a nonprofit lawyer, blah. So I have to do the hard stuff too.
Yeah. So, well, to be a bit more positive, what's it like when you get to give them good news? Be like, oh, hey, your petition has been accepted. You are now a permanent resident or a citizen or whatnot. What's that like?
It's really good. I delivered some green cards a couple weeks ago, so that was fun. Like the relief on people's faces, like a lot of times people like will cry or like people will like just kind of like you see people like relax finally. I gave somebody a work card that we didn't think was gonna come through. So that kind of stuff, it fills up my cup. Yeah.
So what kind of volunteer opportunities are you guys gonna have open? So I don't have to help people later.
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
They're gonna be coming up. So we're doing a little bit of restructuring right now because we got a new director. But we're gonna be doing more clinics. So it's kind of like drive-through legal assistance, you know, like people come be like, what do I do next? And kind of that kind of stuff. So we're gonna need people to help like with like intake forms, like help people prepare their documents for us and stuff. So that's off the top of my head, some of the things that's gonna be coming up. But I mean, like, I'm gonna be doing some writing projects coming up. So I think people like research things and stuff and let me get all credit for it. Just kidding. Yeah.
Very cool. How much of your job is writing? Because like I hear that that's a general thing in undergrad that you should practice for going to law school. But for how much of being a lawyer is like, how much writing experience do you need? How often is that part of your daily life?
I mean, it really helps me like center myself. You know, like people like ask me a complex legal question and being able to write it out and piece it out like makes a big difference for me. So I guess you could not write as much as I do, but like it really helps me get my brain on straight. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Do you speak another language? And if so, would you say that's valuable?
Yes, I speak Spanish and I got a 10% salary increase because I speak Spanish. So learn another language, it'll pay off. Yeah.
Did you get a minor in Spanish at ASU or
I
just proved yourself that you spoke Spanish?
I guess I could like, I would like to kick myself because I was 2 classes away from a minor, but I took advanced Spanish grammar. So I'm gonna take an advanced Spanish grammar. It's miserable. Like after I took that, I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like, but push through it. Like you can do Spanish grammar, like you can do it. So I wish I would have got the minor, but I couldn't do it.
So do you mostly meet with your clients in person? And if so, where do you usually meet them? Like in your office or?
So we mostly do phone calls. If we do meet clients, we do have a policy that like, if we meet clients, it has to be either with like 2 other staff or in a public and populated area. Just like safety and avoid all appearances of impropriety.
So I speak Spanish, but how good does your Spanish need to be?
Good enough that like
could it be like at a basic level or do you need to learn like? Really good enough?
to get like the salaries.
Yeah.
You have to be able to like explain things to somebody and like, but you don't have to like, I don't know, you don't have to like read Don Quixote or something like, like just enough to communicate with somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Did you always know Spanish growing up, or is it just like?
Yeah, I grew up speaking Spanish. I like grew up on the west side of Tucson, so. Yeah, but Spanish grammar. Yeah. Really hard class.
Have you gone to trial before?
So I was interning at the public defender's office right when COVID hit. I prepared for a trial, but then it was pushed back to after our semester was done. So I've never been to trial, but I've prepared for trial. People say that's half of going to trial.
All right, you go first.
I'm interested in international law, and I'm wondering, is there a lot of overlap between immigration law and like international refugee law and international business law?
Not as much as you think, because like there's just separate systems. So for my thesis in law school, I wrote it on the kids in cages, and I worked with a human rights attorney. And it's, I mean, it was like, he was like telling me, he was like, internationally, the kids in cages is absolutely illegal. So it's like not an interesting thing to write about. Like, it is illegal. Like, that would have been my whole paper. But now, like federally, like in the United States, it's not illegal. So kind of that overlap or like that clash is kind of how that works out. So it's not as, it doesn't interact as much as you think, but there's still a way of headbutting. Yeah.
All right, well, we're coming up to 7, so if we have another question, does anyone have a last one? Eric?
Yeah, so you've talked obviously a lot about being an immigration lawyer and like how you can change fields at any time. Have you also thought about like moving states? And if so, how do you think that'll impact your field?
I mean, I've thought about it. I don't think I will, but if I did, I'd have to take the bar again. But I mean, like each state has like a unique legal system and like each state has different problems and different things that they're overcoming. So, I mean, if that happened, it would be an exciting change. It's not something that I'm looking for right now.
Okay, one more, and that'll be the last one.
Do you know the steps on how to become a judge?
You get appointed, so you have to be politically savvy. Yeah.
All right, well, fantastic. Let's give Ms. Haggerty a round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah.